and it's starting now. And it's being recorded.
Recording in progress.
Call this meeting to order. If you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start off with the roll call. Mayor Lindsay? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Howell? Councilor Weeks? Here. Councilor Humbert? Councilor Crane?
Here.
We have a quorum. We may proceed.
Okay. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item A. Really, I want to just turn this over to the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and then answer anything we can as chairs or liaisons to any of the other committees, obviously, all working together, and reporting back to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. So at this time, Attila, are you gonna take the lead on this?
I am, Mayor, thank you. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing us to present today at your work session. My name is Attila Balti. I'm the co-chair of the Comprehensive Trail Committee and also co-chair of the Trails, Recreation Trails Committee. Mary Ann McDonald is the other co-chair of the Comp Plan Committee and is calling in remotely today. Council and the mayor established this Comp Plan Committee last spring with the objective of revising the 2006 comprehensive plan that the village created then and adopted back in 2006. So it's been a while, and the committee's been active on a number of different fronts, talking to the other working committees, looking at understanding issues as we go forward that. But I thought I would share what I hope to get out of today's session, make sure we're all on the same page with that before we go into further. But one, I want to quickly provide an overview of the comp plan benefits, so we understand why it's important for this community. I wanted to cover the key elements of a comprehensive plan, which moves into what we're expecting and anticipating from the committee, their assignments and the timeline for each committee. And then third is, we'll talk about the committee assignments and timeline, and the fourth item is a discussion on the issues that the committees have, and a couple of different questions. What's driving your interest? What do you know about existing conditions? What more information do you need? And how would you like to engage the community? Because I think we really need a feedback loop. So that's kind of our outline for today, if that is okay with everyone as we move forward on that. Okay, thank you. Comprehensive plans are sometimes documents that localities despise going through. It's like this exercise of generating paper and generating goals, and then, okay, we're done with it. Let's go back to our day-to-day putting out fires. And a lot of communities go back and just put out fires until 10 years later, and there's comp plan due again, because state requires comp plans about every 10 years. And we never get past putting out fires. So the comp plans, if done through the way we're doing it now, which I think is fascinating that we have this many working committees and 60+ citizen representatives on this. Usually, communities say, they hire a consulting firm, go do it for me, and let me read your draft in a year, and I'll sign off on it. And we have a really good opportunity to continue this community engagement. I think that's great for us as we're moving forward. But why should we have a comprehensive plan? Okay, it allows us to be proactive versus reactive to issues and changes that arise over time. So it's not putting out those fires all the time. It allows the community to identify factors influencing and shaping the community and consider how competing interests can be balanced. It provides guidance for orderly growth, development, and physical appearance of the community. So we're not popping up some structure here and some design, and next year the street signs change design, the year trail signs change design, and we have this constant change. So it's orderly growth and physical appearance. provides an opportunity to think regionally, especially regarding growth utilities, community services like healthcare, which is a hot topic for us now, and transportation. And it sets up a community for grant funding success by clarifying needs and demonstrating public support for certain projects or improvements. Money almost always follows a good plan. So in this case, we've got grant writers in the community, but without having the good demographic data that's needed, and without having community support for a trail or a road project, it's hard to go after that money. So we're showing through our comprehensive plan and through our demographic data and others that we have interest in these projects, and it's easier for the grant writers to get the content for these projects through the comp plan information. It serves as a guide to orient decisions over time, no matter if there's a turnover in leadership, council and or staff. Provides for stability and predictability. So the other key thing about a comprehensive plan, I think, is, and the reason we have 60 people present is that 60 people are all gonna be advocates and activists for moving this in the right direction. So in 5 years from now, when there's potentially a whole new leadership in this village, there should be 60 plus people that still say, hey, we spent a lot of time on this. This is the decision, the direction the community wanna go. Let's go after it. So it doesn't let the comp plan be neglected or forgotten about. So it's really important on this piece of that plan. And the last thing is that it builds consensus and commitment for elected officials and provides guidance for future decision making. So what we hope to accomplish through our committee is get to that goal, action item, maybe some implementation strategy, but it's really gonna be leadership and staff retreats figuring out what those details are. What are those pieces of the puzzle? If we have this goal, we have these actions, what are the pieces of the puzzle to get us there? And that's gonna take a lot of probably facilitated conversations among leadership and staff, department heads and others, and line officers and line staff on how do we get all this done. So we can get the community can provide us with this general direction we think is right with all the interest going on, but it's up to you guys to figure out the details. So the key elements of a comp plan include the existing conditions. Where are we now? You know, what's happening with roads in the last couple of years, or last month for that matter? What's happening with public health? What are our current situation? Because we can't create goals and strategies without understanding our existing conditions and understanding those issues. So that's that first phase we're in now, is really understanding where we're at. As long as we know those issues, we can turn those issues into goals and actions, and then implementation strategies. We always need a land use map, and the 2006 land use map focused on the Northwest Quadrant. I mean, that was like 90% of that document was focusing on Northwest Quadrant, and all the energy went towards getting infrastructure out there. We were pretty successful with that to some degree, so that counts for a lot. And then we have a plan outline, which I'm gonna let Allison cover in a second. So far we've gone through this plan outline, revised it about 6 times from what came out of the 2006 plan, and it may be revised a bunch more, but all the major sections on that. And then we have, those are the main elements, is the existing conditions, the issues, goals and actions, and what we're asking now between now and March, which we're gonna get into in just a second, is the existing conditions, issues, and goals and actions. And then implementation strategies we'll be covering probably in the springtime. We can talk about milestones. I mean, maybe Mary Ann, if you could go over our milestones and calendar a bit later in the presentation that we covered recently.
I don't have one in front of me, but I could try to remember.
You remember most of it, I think. Well, let's cover the plan outline that we're thinking about.
Okay.
Allison, thank you.
A lot of you probably haven't, come up to the podium. It was a lot of you probably haven't put the old comprehensive plan outline to, memory or anything, but just to let you know, there are 13 sections. Well, one of them is the executive summary, but They go over things like sustainability, community character, Mountain View Boulevard corridor design, land use, Northwest Quadrant, recreation and open space, quality of life, natural resources, transportation, economic development, and utilities. There's a lot, don't kind of remember it all, but just kind of listen to the general gist of what those headers are. And what we did was we tried to take those headers and say, where do those fit into more of a village organization? So how is this village organized? What are the departments like? And when a department has a section they can go to, or the leadership can go to and say, what is it for this department? It's much easier than having to go to 5 different places or 10 different places in the plan. So what we did was we put in a section on land use and plan development. I mean, we had one that was called, well, no, land use. But then there's all this other development stuff in many other places. So we wanted to put all of it in there and then key in on the things that are obviously a priority for us. There's a lot of really good stuff in the old plan, and we're gonna utilize a lot of that information, but we have to update a lot of it as well. So, for instance, in land use and plan development, I don't wanna spend too much time on this, but just trying to give you guys a general overview of what we're looking at here for the plan. This section includes things like the resort character, the character of the whole village. You know, what is the architecture and design that we might want to have for this village? A focal point for the village. And I hear that over and over and over again from people saying, where is the center of this community? A preferred land use and zoning scenario. We have all the ordinances and planning and land use already built, but maybe there's some things that we want to build into that we can add to it. And then support development of convenient, affordable housing options for the Angevira workforce. So we've got our committee on the Workforce Housing Committee, right, that helps support that. So all that information on those committees that might build into this information goes into that section. The second section is water, wastewater, and solid waste. So this is kind of like your public works group, your department at the village. And so, do we have enough water for our community? You know, what is our water right situation? What is our conservation plan? You know, how are we using our water? When do we use our water? How much leaking do we have in our lines and our tanks? And then, you know, for as far as wastewater, is our wastewater collection system adequate for what we need it for? And in our solid waste, we have our slash program. We have our recycling. We need to build on our recycling. So things like that would go into that section. Section 3, roads and transportation. And this has to do with, everybody knows, we have a committee on this, but this condition of the surface of our roads and the drainage design, you know, how is that affecting things like our wetlands and our streams, as well as just your driveway. Expanding transit services, including airport and just getting cars to move around the town. Pedestrian access. Then section 4 is recreation and outdoor spaces. And what we have in here is improve and maintain and create recreational opportunities throughout the community. Plan for a public park near the center of the village. You know, what are the priorities we have for that section? Maintain our trails, of course. Section 5, community life and tourism, brings in several of the old plans sections, things like information and communication plan for the community. Community events and core community activities such as the farmers market, the library, Balloons Over Angevira, just that whole, what is our tourism for the community? Encourage development of arts and cultural activities, and then educational opportunities. Section 6, economic development. This is one where we don't have anybody, we have people assigned on our committee to each of these sections, and we don't have anybody assigned to economic development, and it's many different places throughout. We've identified all the committees that might have information to support this, things like Workforce Housing Committee, Tourism Department, Chamber of Commerce, Resort, Airport Committee. All of these things need to be built into things like our economic development plan. There was one done in 2019, and it is very good, but it does need to be updated to know what our current economic situation is. Yeah.
And I'll just let you know too, on that topic, that given all the communities that we or committees that we currently have going, several of them will start phasing themselves out. And so when that occurs, we intend to, the next two committees that we intend to start, one being an economic development committee. And, in addition to that, for lack of a better term, a healthcare committee.
Yes, yes. That's one of the new, sections we have. So, yeah, you can kind of understand what would go into an economic development section. Section 7 is a brand new section, wasn't covered at all in the previous comprehensive plan, which is public health and safety. Things like our police department, our fire department services, and medical services. Section 8 is natural resources and environmental protection. We had a natural resources one before, and we had sustainability. It was all over the place, so just bringing all into one section on that. We've got wildfire mitigation in there, air quality, and preserving and protecting the natural and scenic beauty of Angel Fire. So that's kind of the overview of what we think may be the new thing. So it gives you an idea of the outline. Do I need to go into any of these things yet? Jump into something else. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Anything we missed? Yes.
You've got 13, but I've got 8 here.
Yes, that's exactly
Oh,
right.
okay.
So the old one had 13,
Oh, okay.
and the new one has 8.
All right,
And
thank you.
what I was trying to say is we're just trying to consolidate, and we're also trying to make this thing much more user-friendly. In other words, you can grab a section of it and go with that to a department of the village or, to a grant or something like that. Good, thanks. All right. And that's your outline, sorry. You could have gotten it.
So Allison mentioned a couple of the committees, but we have the Trails and Recreation Committee, Wetlands, Infrastructure, Tourism, Economic Development Group working going on Public Works, Fire Adaptive Community, Lodgers Tax, Airport, Workforce Housing, Night Sky, Planning and Zoning, Public Health, and the Quality of Life stuff. So those are all different topics, and it seems there's all some energy in all those topics
So,
in the village right now.
real quick on that, sorry to
okay.
interrupt, but there are village committees that have been set up that are some of those.
And-
Other ones are
And
independent,
it's nonprofit.
yeah, like night skies or
Yeah.
dark skies, and then the wetlands, and then others are just the departments we're
Correct.
working with, we're going to meeting with them and getting information from them, so that's the
Yeah,
resources.
so we are, all those sources are important, for the overall, development of this project. All right, so we're asking that each of the committees, and the departments and the, the dark sky or wetlands to focus on issues and existing conditions right now. So the plan needs to have an existing conditions section, and we're not looking for volumes of narrative, we're kind of looking for bullet points, a paragraph or two on these topics. We really need to understand that, so everyone is on the same page for this. So if we are pursuing some project, we can say, well, here is the existing condition and here's the issues it's raising. So we're asking each one of the committees is to develop and provide the comp plan committee with an existing conditions report, whatever is there. And we are asking for that process to occur in this next 30 days. Through the middle of November, actually, is existing conditions. That could be staffing, budget, inventory of amenities, condition assessment. So all the trail system that the village manages, what's the condition of those? How long is it? What do we know about the users on it? Who's not using it? Whatever we can help with understand existing conditions.
Do you wanna just kind of give a
Yes,
few
okay.
examples?
Yeah, I'll get to that, yes, I'll get to that. So, one example, like for wastewater is, we have 150 miles of water lines serving X number of meters, X number of homes. So with those data would be really important to know. X number of feet of 2-inch water lines, X number of feet of 4-inch water lines. Amount of permitted water rights. So those could be the data text that helps us understand where we are. Because it is different. I mean, we are here 130 miles, 150 miles of roads. What really is it? Or if we don't have the information, can we get it? is really important to have to make further decisions. So that existing conditions, is our baseline. We're really after that baseline. You see the wetlands work, it's already bringing in ducks. It's already working those, bigger damn analogs. Okay, so we're asking each one of the, committees and these others to give us a deliverable, a succinct description of existing conditions, either in paragraph, a bulleted format. And I'll go over that timeline in a second. The second one is a generated list of issues, challenges, and opportunities facing whatever it is. So some committees, it may just be opportunities. Maybe there's opportunities for Music of Angel Fire that is not really an issue or a problem, but I've got opportunities that we could do cool things with. So the second task for each committee is to generate this list of issues, challenges, and opportunities. This can be done through a group exercise. That's how the Trails group will start working on it tomorrow. But it's also worthwhile to get some feedback on these. So could you take your list of issues on a topic and take it by the Rotary, or take it by the High School Honor Society, or take it by another committee? What we're after here is trying to get the bumblebee thing to pollinate. So if I've got an idea that might be good for wetlands or roads, so we want to pollinate each other's committees with ideas and not just be stuck in our own silo. So we want to make sure we can cross-pollinate these different committees with other ideas. So the second task that's going to be due for the committees by middle of January is a concise description of issues, challenges, and opportunities that inform the goals that we're going to be developing for each one of these topics. And then from January 15th to February 28th, we're going to take some goal statements and develop goals based from those issues. And your committee, your topic may have one goal, it may have 5 goals, it may have 7 goals. What we're gonna start seeing on this though is that some goals that are gonna overlap and interrelate between the different committees. And that's our committee responsibility, the comp plan committee, is to start trying to make sense of where there's overlap between these different committees. So it's not all siloed. We're gonna advocate for a SMART goals process. So the earlier version, a lot of the goals are just a statement, but a SMART goal says the goal has to be specific. It has what do you want to accomplish, who should be included, and when you want to do this. It's measurable. How can you measure progress and know you've met your goal? So do we want to increase paved roads by 10% or decrease paved roads by 10%? Is there a measure in there that we can say, yeah, in 5 years, we were successful in this goal? And it's gonna also help with accountability by the departments and by management to make sure that the department, if the department has this goal to pursue, then they've got their marching orders per se on what they're gonna be working on. It's achievable. So this is really an important part. I think every committee has to take into account the fiscal capacity of the village and the staff capacity of the village for a realistic goal. So we can't go massive, huge, great pie in the sky goals knowing there's no way we'll ever get that done because we don't have the money, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources. So we have to be realistic and it's gotta be achievable. And it's also gotta be relevant. Is it aligned with our overall objectives? And this goes back to the relevant piece, may tie into thinking about what is in the earlier plan, what's the vision for the community? What do we want to be? So these goals tie into that for that relevant part. It's time bound. What's a deadline? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? When's this goal going to accomplish? And each year we get steps to get towards that. And so those are the SMART goals. And we're going to ask the committees to think about a general goal statement and trying to put some of these measures on that. All of them may not have all of them on there, but at least achievable and measurable and specific are the, I think, key things to think about for each one of the goals. So then, I think most committees will probably come up with 4 to 8 goals. I mean, the water system is going to have goals on water delivery, on wastewater, on water consumption and water conservation. There may be 4 or 5 goals just in that one topic. So that is gonna be up to each committee to think, are we covering everything? And then there's development of the recommended actions. So the recommended actions could be also called objectives or strategies, but we're gonna go with recommended actions. Here are the key steps we need to take to achieve this goal. But that's not gonna get into details of, okay, public works has gotta do these 3 things, and recreation's gotta do those 2 things, and economic development's gotta pursue those 2 grants to do this. So there, all those little details are further down into the mix of beyond the recommended actions. And we're hoping for recommended actions by the end of March for each committee. And we're gonna be trying to task everyone to this. So the council liaison's position is to hopefully, challenge your committees and your committee chairs to continue on these tasks. And if there's committees that are sunsetting, if they've already delivered this to you, we can just incorporate that. So we're not asking for new stuff. So I know, for example, Fire Adaptive has been working for years on this stuff, and it probably knows what the goals they have and actions. Workforce Housing has been doing a lot of stuff, and so you've already are there. We're just gonna build it in, so we're not asking for new stuff, but to make sure we have what you've been working on and trying to package it all together. Okay, so questions on timeline or goals in that process? Does that sound to make sense? Any clarification questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have copies of this outline, so we,
Yes,
in case we don't
yes,
take the
there's a
notes?
bunch of propaganda on the back table that has all this on there for you. There's all the worksheets and everything for your committees.
Okay.
And I think we have copies of a couple different things. So the next part, a little more detail, Allison's gonna hand out and go over an example of a template. We created a template for each committee, or the committees to use. And we've created one on water and wastewater and solid waste, which Allison has a professional familiar with, and she's gonna cover that piece for us.
Okay. Yeah, so what's going around right now, is an example and a blank example for the committees to consider utilizing and filling out. So what Attila was saying is, in this chart, let's see, is it making its way over? You guys have it yet? You guys have it? All right, there's the blank one, and there's the one that actually says water, wastewater, well, actually, the first key topic, 2A, is water supply and availability. So, what Attila basically just went over is kind of like the blank. This is how we do it. And here's just some examples. These are not fully fleshed out at all. This is not final. This is just first draft. But it just kind of gives you an idea of the information level of detail we're looking for. So for instance, for water supply and availability being the first key topic under water, wastewater, and solid waste management, you know, we want to capture what the community has accomplished up to date. Things like the SCADA system that's currently going in right now, it's already partially in, and it's really quite impressive. And that's gonna give us real-time information on water, availability, or water supply, really. And how many meters have we replaced, for instance? You know, we're gonna capture what we've done as a community to improve our situation. You know, tank 7, things like that. And I know this much about all that, but I'm meeting with the department reps, with Kurt and with Arwen, to get all this information. You know, and as Attila already mentioned, some of the existing conditions, you know, like one of the existing conditions we have is how much water do we lose when we have a leak? And how much water do we lose over the year? Maybe we don't have real good information on that, but we can have an estimate and try to get to some idea of where is our highest priority for improving our water availability. And is it reducing the leaking lines and the bleeder lines? Or are they just really a small thing that looks really big? You know, purchasing and leasing additional water rights. That's been in the comp plan for a long time. People know about this. It's nothing new, but it, you know, we need to have it as a key goal that we go after. So as you can see, are you guys all looking pretty much at the one that's filled out? All right, so.
The blank template on the screen now. too.
Oh, right, okay. So, so what we've done is we have our previous accomplishments, our existing conditions, which is really our data collection. That's where this spot we're in right now. We need to get a lot of information that helps us decide what are our primary challenges. Well, your primary challenge might be, or as I mentioned, opportunities and issues might be available. What's your available water? You have an available water issue. And what are the implications if that's not addressed? Well, we might have a limit on community water use. We might have a limit or reduced ability to grow as a community. Our goal statements might be something like increase water supply by X% by 2030. And that's something that's very measurable. It has a timeline. And then how do you get there? The recommended actions are general. They're not a detailed, exactly how you're gonna get there, or we're gonna go get a, contract with Raton and we're gonna lease the water rights, or we're gonna go and buy the water from CS Ranch, or whatever it is, but, here's all the things that we could approach to improve our water supply or our water availability, and, which one of them is gonna be priority, all right? Which one is gonna give us the most bang for the buck? So that's, and maybe there's 2 or 3 of them that we can, doing the conservation plan at the same time as going after water rights makes sense. But if you're saying, well, we're gonna spend this X money on bleeder lines, when we really could spend that money over here on a different priority that will get us just the same result, then we gotta decide which one was the one we wanna go after. So, I just thought I would give you this example, you can peruse it. There's a section in here on wastewater treatment and septic systems. And one of the interesting things, just kind of a little aside, but it also is just something that comes up when you go through this, is how one area might have a goal that can support another area. And one of the things we have, and I know that this community really wants to increase its wastewater treatment coverage of the community. And we are not fully utilizing our wastewater treatment capacity. And the interesting thing is, if we were to make increase the number of lines, the number of entities that were on the line on wastewater, we would have more wastewater, and we could actually get credit for that wastewater to support our water availability, because we are very limited in what water we have. And so here you have, wow, that came out, that if we increase this, it's gonna increase this. So just kind of a neat little thing that just, you never know. So does anybody have any questions? We'd love to have some discussion about this. If you have any questions or any thoughts, yes,
You
please.
say you had a template for each committee?
We do not. We
Oh,
have a
okay.
template that still has a title on it, that's water, wastewater, but that's just for you to replace. And you can use that for a committee, and you can add as many topics as you need, or take some out. It's just a template for you to utilize. Yeah. How do we get them all, these templates? We just email it to them all?
I believe we'll have to, since there's not we don't have a Google site yet for all this stuff, do we? We will email a clean template to each committee chair.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
That'll be our action item.
yeah. And, Attila already went over the other 2 outlines. Mary Ann, please, go for it.
In our notice for this meeting, I sent out an email with the template, the example, the schedule, and the SMART description. There were 4 documents attached to the invitation for this meeting today. So all the committee chairs should have that at their use.
Okay, all right. So do we wanna ask any committee chairs to go over any of their issues or bring anything up?
Yeah, I think so. Manager?
And if anybody has any comments on this later, if they wanna come up to me or whatever, we would like to hear from you.
Yeah, so have y'all considered a category in this of legislative priorities? Because, for example,
Right now, we are a septic tank driven village. 70% of our homes are on, maybe more, are on septic systems. We get no credit for water returning to the aquifer from septic systems. If we were to take it out of the septic system and put it through our wastewater treatment plant and pump it into the Cienega, or Cienega,
You're right.
always get corrected, sorry. If we did that, we would get credit, which is what Allison said, is the thing, right now, like last quarter, we produced just enough affluent water to, basically, we had to reapply it to our sludge to keep dust on the sludge down. So we didn't get to put hardly any into the creek, because we're not generating enough. If everybody was here, we'd be getting credit for all that water against our water rights. But since it goes into the septic system, which, when you put it in the Cienega,
That's correct. That's right. It means little wetland. Cienega.
I got a story I'll tell you
Oh,
about
yeah,
that one.
the hills are south.
I embarrassed myself one time. I said, who is this Vigil guy? He has his name on all the buildings. Anyway, long story. Anyhow, so right now, but that's a legislative change. And yeah, it may be an uphill battle, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. But it just,
And on that same topic, snowmaking,
Yes,
yeah.
there's no credit.
exactly. So we know about, there was a study done at Ski Santa Fe, right? Where they were looking at getting snowmaking credits. That's one of the things we need to look into and find out what they did, because we thought we were gonna be able to utilize that same ratio for here.
So I will tell you, I was told 2 weeks ago by our water master that Santa Fe was successful and they get return credits for snowmaking.
There you go.
Why we don't get it is because we haven't chosen
Exactly.
to fight the legal
Exactly.
battle.
And that's on here. All right.
So anyhow, my point is, that was just one example, but I think we need to, in this plan, we need to also be considering legislative priorities that we could pursue.
I think it's a good thing to build into each section, so something I did not cover, and it's really good you brought this up. In these, at the end of each key topic section, there are 2 headers for timeline and milestones for recommended actions and funding sources. And I think here would be a great place to have a legislative priority, if there is such a thing. That could be something we could add and see how we would pursue it through that, either that route or not.
Okay.
Would that work in the same way as what
I
you're
think so.
saying? Okay.
And the recommended actions that everyone's proposed can reflect a policy,
Yeah.
a program, a physical project, or even a promotion. So I think you could, all those are fair game as actions or pieces. So policy, you have a policy that says, hey, you gotta use a sidewalk if it's there. And now you're plowing those sidewalks in the winter because you've got a ordinance says we've got people use sidewalks. So other communities have done sidewalks. Cuba, for example, 550 through town, put in nice sidewalks. DOT just blows the snow on there and it stays on there through April because they have no policy that says snow removal off sidewalks. So we're ahead on something. So we can put policy in these things, and I think that fits. And maybe we might pull all that stuff out and have a legislative priority subsection that is pulled all these pieces out. And if you guys are pursuing, I know you have, we now have people working in Santa Fe for us, working those things, so, how does that fit into that? So it's all part of the puzzle.
And we do have a lobbyist.
Yeah, right, so that's exactly, that fits in real well, so we can see where that goes. I like that. Questions, anything else from the audience so far, committee chairs? So we do also have a sign-in sheet for all the committee chairs, somewhere, here's one here, there's another one somewhere. We'd like all the committee chairs to at least sign in today. We'll just have that moving around the room. So I want to take a little time, if it's okay, to think about community discussion on issues. So I had 3 questions for everyone to think about real quick. Is what's driving your interest and passion? And that's kind of the issue piece. What do you know, existing conditions, and how do you want to engage the community? Does anyone want to share what their committee's been challenged with working on? If not, we're gonna end pretty quick.
Or you just go around the room and ask
Yeah.
each person.
Well, I think, I'll just let you know, I think, the liaisons are gonna be the bigger piece of that conversation today. And unfortunately, Mayor Pro Tem Howe, he's the liaison to the Roads and Infrastructure Committee. I can speak somewhat to that. Councilor Humbert is, on the comp plan. So with you folks here, I don't think we're missing too much there. Jeff leads several committees. I'm on the airport transfer committee, and Jake is on several of these committees. So, however you'd like to address them, I think we could,
I think it'd be good to hear just a couple of the big topics that, the groups are working on, start see through, like, hey, I need to go talk to that committee, from the other committees. I think, I don't think you guys have enough time during your council meetings and us to share that kind of stuff that you should go
not
talk
real
to the committee.
extensively, no, just usually updates if there is.
Yeah, okay,
There is quite a bit to offer.
yeah. So I think we should offer a little bit if we can, and spend a little time on those kind of 3 topics, and maybe as a group, we delve in that quad topic about how do we engage the community. We are now, tentatively, we definitely know we need a feedback loop. Once we have the issues and goals figured out, we need to, find a way to engage the broader community. So beyond the 60 people to get some ground truthing, are we all on the right track? Cause I personally have not heard any from other committee ask the Rec Trails Committee, hey, what do you guys think about this topic? So we still need better interchange between all the working groups, and I'm hoping that we can start that today with better interchange and coordination between all the different working groups and the liaisons.
So, one thing that I would recommend y'all look into, if you haven't considered, is the workforce housing, Councilor Crane and the Workforce Housing Committee has already, gone out and done a survey of, our, businesses and the employees in those businesses, and has a tool set up and, no need to reinvent the wheel. And I think working with them, if you guys want to interface with the community, that might be the best way, because the challenge with, doing live, which is what everybody would naturally prefer to do, is, availability of people, as, people have lives and whatever, doctor's appointments and jobs and things. And I think with today's technology, surveys can be a great tool to try and get feedback, because people can kind of respond at their leisure.
And I think it's really, what you keyed in on is that group went for the community that knows the most about the issues, right? So the survey went to the businesses and the employees, and it came directly from that committee. Obviously, the comp plan committee can't go out and put this out, because we don't know the intricate details and the questions that a single committee might ask, but we would like those committees, like, I know the Trails Committee did a survey as well, and I actually got it because I'm on the Trekkers group, and, was able to respond to that, because I was familiar with a lot of that. But if you were to put it out to the entire community at large, unless we're talking about something that is like the community center kind of thing, I mean, I hear that from everyone I ask, everyone, they say, oh, where is Angel Fire? What is Angel Fire? And it's kind of interesting. I just ask people here and there, that, and I know you guys are working on that, right?
Right.
Another strategy on that topic might be, a newsprint kind of community conversation that kind of lists the big issues, lists the big topics, lists the big goals, and maybe we buy a couple of pages in Santa Circle News in the springtime and push it all in that, and then use that same as a PDF document that can be shared on the village website and linked to the social media pages for feedback.
I'll just say a good start that I feel like we have, and is Greg Ralph and the tourism department have been putting out what we're calling the Village Voice.
Yeah.
And we can easily expand on that, and,
Mhm.
we're trying to use it, you'll notice that each issue gets a little larger, a little more in detail. And sometimes there's more information than we can even fit that we'd like to share. But that's a good one that we feel like not only residents, but, second homeowners, get that information. You know, there's not a lot of people outside of here that subscribe to the Enchanted Circle News, for
Right.
instance. So we're trying to use that one
Okay.
as a voice to the constituents, whether they're full-time or part-time here.
What's the feedback loop on that? So far, so good?
So far,
Good
it's been
responses?
great, it's been
Okay.
great, very great feedback. It's like everything else, you don't hear it it's not really publicly, but one-off people really appreciate,
Okay.
when that's brought up, so it's.
Do you,
Well, and
subscribe
it's
to
new
that?
too,
It
so.
is relatively new, I think this will be the third or fourth issue that's gonna be going out, so like it'll go out in November, reporting back on what we did in October.
So do you subscribe to that as a
It comes in
newsletter?
your water
No,
bill.
it comes in your water bill.
I might be.
And and we put them here at Village Hall, so you can walk by and you can come in and pick one up.
And we can work with tourism to start, publishing it in different places, share it on the village website, get it out on the social media.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That would be a big if it's on the social media as well, I
We're
think.
just,
Yeah.
we're cautious about how much we put on social media, managing comments and that sort of thing. We haven't,
Well, we could just, send the link to the village website.
Right.
and then we
That's
allow
what
other
I was-
people to share it.
Yeah.
They
Right.
can do whatever they want on their page.
Right, so we would be open for comment at that point. If you wanna comment,
Like a survey link.
yeah, survey link or a QR code or something that says, here's the village voice on the comp plan topic, okay? All right, so, if we were to wanna pursue that in the early, maybe in March, when we've got a good handle on these things, should we work with Greg or,
Greg and Brandon, I think right now would be we can evaluate it over the course of this,
okay,
and see who's best to handle it. But right now, they're the ones handling the village voice.
okay.
So Tilla, you're trying to get issues and stuff out there. Do you think you could start us off with the Trails Committee, maybe?
Sure.
Just give us a little, with your 1, 2, 3s?
Yes, Recreation Trails Committee was combined, so Shay with the community center is our village liaison, Counselor Weeks as our council liaison to the Rec and Trails Committee, thanks. And we have, we're meeting every 2 weeks on a number of different topics. Right now, our issues are, I guess our existing conditions are unknown. There's still some questions on what sections of trail are owned by the village and owned by the resort, who manages what. So management and oversight of some of the trails is a existing condition and issue for us. Another issue for us is, we do not have a complete, condition assessment of all the trails, including resort greenbelt stuff. And we have created a condition assessment form, and we'll be relying hopefully on community volunteers after some training on going out and assessing the greenbelt trails with resort staff and village staff to get a good handle on where we're at, what we see on the village trails. On recreation, there's a lot of energy on Allen Fields, there's a lot of energy on the skate park, and what it's gonna look like, and it's gonna be a skate park combination pump track for bicycles, for the BMX style bicycles is a topic. Location, we're grappling with, is it better here in the village, or is it better out at Allen Fields, and the consensus seems to be Allen Fields. But then we're dealing with access issues to Allen Fields. We're looking at a priority from the 2018 trails priorities, which is extending the Frank Young Trail to where it currently ends all the way to Allen Fields and the high school. So it will provide both a walk to school route, bike to school route, and then let those kids easier have a better access right to Allen Fields since they use those pretty regularly, so that's underway. I believe there's, engineering work being done on Allen Fields to put in some amenities such as lighting, and I believe, a restroom facility, and possibly eventually a concession stand for that, so we're seeing some development there. And those are the big things we're talking about right now. Also adaptive trails. So this past summer, some adaptive users from Albuquerque came up. They're on hand cycles and motorized tricycles. They rode the Greenbelt trails, loved it, came back and rode the mountain on their adaptive bike. And most of these guys are paraplegics and they had a great time. So that inspired the resort to start thinking about how we identify the trails up here that are potentially great for adaptive users.
Which also with that transform, goes into lodger's tax, bringing heads and beds where those
Exactly.
committees can work
Right.
together.
And then we have a veterans healing space here, and what I've learned on my time doing trail work is that a black green belt trail, a black paved trail is not a challenge. So how do I get on the green belt trails and how far can I go? So our role is to help identify what is adaptive and do we need to make any modification to adaptive use, and then market this community is the first great place in New Mexico for adaptive riding. That changes the whole game on the heads and beds and then veterans and the different groups coming out here. So our Rec Trails Committee has been active on that, and we have a good group. Half of them are trekkers. Some have gone back to their winter homes, but a lot of them are still permanent here in town on rec and trail issues. So our big goals are gonna be, our big goals will be connectivity within the village proper. We still see a goal from the RV park out on the highway. They're all coming in on e-bikes, and can they ride into town to get groceries or to the cool summer nights on a green belt trail or a ride instead of driving in it? So how do we figure that out? That was a plan in early years as well, and it's still valid. We have issues right here on North Angel Fire Road where you cross from Sendero del Sol to Frank Young, and you've gotta go over 4 curbs to cross the street, and that is not accessible. There's no pathway, there's no pedestrian crosswalk there. There's no hawk signal, pedestrian flashing signal right there at 434 on North Angel Fire where you could go to the grocery store and not have to worry about lights. So our group is thinking about pedestrian sidewalk access as well as trail stuff, or just for this in-town connectivity. So that's where we're kind of thinking about. So those are our big goals, adaptive stuff, and working with the resort to manage, help them manage their resources in town as well, but I know work on the green belt stuff. So that's us. So we have intersection with Streets Committee, we have intersection with Lodgers Tax Group, we have intersection with a number of other committees on the recreation and trail stuff. Anybody else want to share from their committee?
I'll share from, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll share from the wetland group. I don't know if you saw us out there, Eager Beavers, we were digging in the mud. We built 20 posts for beaver dam analogs, and we completed 8 with weeding them with the willow and the mud and the spruce branches and all that weaving in there, and it was almost an immediate effect. And apologize, I can't say PJ, but
Well, come up to the podium.
yeah, but it was almost an immediate effect, and so it spread out the water, and we've been working on this for 2 years, and finally, got our core permit in place, got our, a lot of other documents and requirements in place, and just all of a sudden, everything came together, and it's absolutely amazing. And now we're working on putting some rocks into what we call Ski Hill Creek, which is really just the creek that comes down from the ski hill and goes on between all the businesses and such, and to try to
prevent some of the sediment from getting into the wetland from there. But, anyway, a lot of progress, we're so excited, that, our group is really just a small group of volunteers that, have been together for about 4 years, concerned mostly about the south side of North Angel Fire Road, you might say, but that is on resort property, and they have plans to do some things, to improve that as well, and hopefully make those things an amenity for this village, something beautiful that, and works better in a natural way, so, anyway. Anybody have any questions about wetland stuff or anything?
In that, I just have one question, I mean, I probably know this, but that creek, isn't there an easement that runs up that creek for,
There's-
like a hiking trail, walking trail?
So the village owns the section that's back here.
Mhm.
Now, on the other side of the creek, now, it's not perfect, there's a line in the creek, does the meander, right? And so the other side is Greenbelt, that's owned by the resort, and so, in this section. Now, that other section is all Greenbelt owned by the resort. Now, the village has an agreement to maintain Sendero del Sol trail with the resort, is my understanding. I haven't seen this written in paper anywhere, but that's my understanding. And then this part is maintained by the village because it is village property. Is that kind of?
Are you talking about Ski Hill Creek?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ski Hill Creek, there's a 40-foot wide village drainage easement
Okay.
that is, now the property is still owned by the neighboring, landowners. Okay, but there's a village easement that goes all the way up to 150 feet west of South Angel Fire Road.
That's what I was asking, yeah, thanks.
And that, then from there on is a 60-foot wide piece of property owned by the resort that follows the creek on up. I went and got all the documents from Colfax County courthouse. So, so that's why we're working in the village section, because we're working in the drainage easement. We're
It's
trying to
looking
make, yeah, thank you, good, I'm glad it's working. So we're working with the resort to make that happen, so they're very supportive. Anything else on that? BJ, were you gonna talk about?
Oh, I was just gonna briefly, since the Mayor Pro Tem Howe couldn't make it, again, he's on the Streets and Infrastructure Committee, Roads and Infrastructure. So that committee is focusing more on, that committee got a late start, and it was one of our more pressing issues that we wanted to tackle immediately, when the weather was available to do so, and our new fiscal year started in July. So we had basically put a plan together to rebuild certain sections of road. The Streets Committee is now working on projects for budgeting consideration for next fiscal year, among some other things. And then I am the liaison to the Airport Transition Committee. And I just want to say that is moving very quickly, but it also is going to take a long time, just with the intergovernmental transfer, and also the biggest thing being the FAA being involved. But with that said, we've already ordered we've determined a list of what is needed to make this transfer at least start the process. The immediate things are a boundary survey, so that's been ordered, an appraisal, that's been ordered, both of which they'll be done by the end of the year at the latest. As well as the county is inventorying all the assets so that we know exactly what's there. That committee's working diligently to gather information and have everything available. We're put out an RFP. It's currently out now for a consultant specifically for this transfer, which these type of things have happened, but it's a specialty niche. And we've identified a few people and hope to get some other respondents to have a good selection of candidates. So the other piece of that puzzle that we're just starting to push for, as you may or may not know, there's scheduled flights coming in starting December, I believe 19th will be the first flight. From what I understand, You can purchase tickets now. It's Advanced Air, what's the name of the website though? It's
Advanced Airlines.
Yeah.
AdvancedAirlines.com, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, you can start purchasing those tickets now. They have indicated that it's a 9-passenger plane, but they're gonna offer 6 tickets per flight, so that they allow plenty of leeway for weight on luggage and so on, and we'll work out those nuances. As you know, flying into high altitude, it's more getting out of here can be a trick. I believe the schedule is depart Albuquerque at 11 a.m. in Angel Fire before noon, and then depart for Albuquerque at 1 o'clock. So that's the current tentative schedule, I believe, 6 days a week.
That's incredible.
With that too, we're looking at, there's been some concerns about a few things that need to happen to the airport facility quickly to accommodate passengers and luggage and a few other things, so the season's extremely short at this point, but we're gonna try to make a few improvements. The Village of Angel Fire gave the county of Colfax, it was $30,000 a couple of years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, of which.
3 years ago now.
3 years ago, of which only 13,000 of that has been spent, so there's $17,000 sitting to be spent on that airport. And so we're gonna immediately do some, concrete work, weather permitting. We're just starting on that process this week, but, we wanna make sure that there's a good pathway for luggage carts and visitors. I mean, so when they get off, from the tarmac to the terminal, they're not walking through any mud or gravel as the current situation may be. So just little things like that, but the village is now, because we realize it's gonna take a minimum of a year for this transfer to be completed, and that's being optimistic. A year to 18 months is the timeframe that we're looking at. The village is now entering into negotiations with the county, with Colfax County, to basically lease and manage that airport, in the short term. So that we can start getting our arms around operations, snow removal. One of the bigger concerns that we have is just the schedule, and what it takes to get the snow off of those runways, and then the time it takes for those runways to completely clear. So we wanna make sure that we're gonna lose some of those scheduled flights to weather, that's a given, whether it's snow or wind, but we wanna minimize that as much as possible. So that's where we're at with the airport committee. And then, one other thing I think is important to the comprehensive plan, is Liberty Square. So we don't really have a committee, it's more gonna be a collaboration of the committees. And so not to step on the lodger's tax report, but the big one that I wanna point out for Liberty Square, which is, many people know it as Plaza del Sol. The technical legal description is Liberty Square. Roughly 21 acres back behind here. We have had that boundary survey and topo done, and we're now in the planning stage for that property. But as many of you may be aware, lodger's tax, when I came into office in January, was at about 2.2 million. We attempted to spend $1 million of that. We got delayed in doing so. Hopefully that will be rectified this evening and we can move forward. But now we have $3 million. We can't seem to spend it fast enough. So one of the plans that we have in place, and this was actually discussed with our auditor when we had our annual audit done, but a suggestion was, and I think it was a great one, is to have a big expenditure where we could actually put some money down, but also commit to payments throughout so basically borrow money from the state at a low interest rate, but we're we're financially, fiscally sound enough to do that. And so one thing that we're trying to plan and wanna see done back here in Liberty Square is a large, I'm proposing a $12 to $15 million budget on a hybrid building is the goal, that can be opened up in the summertime, closed down in the wintertime. And we need this facility because, as you know, the events that we've been holding in Frontier Park have been successful and every year gained more and more popularity. But quite frankly, on many occasions, we've outgrown the park. There's still gonna be dates and times that there's perfect little, events that can be held there, but for the most part, as you're probably aware if you visit, parking is becoming an issue. Quite frankly, capacity at certain times has even become an issue. So we need to start looking forward to the future to help alleviate some pressure off of there. We may, as soon as this summer, have, for lack of a better term, we're gonna have, once it's planned out, the proper place, but we'd like to see this as early as the spring, but just a nice landscaped, grassy area, with a large, for lack of a better term, circus tent, to where we can start holding some of the events there, have everybody park there, that sort of thing, and start transitioning events from Frontier over to that facility and then eventually into the to the larger facility. I would anticipate the lawn and tent happening this summer, spring, summer, and then if we can hold our schedule, mainly due to weather and planning, but groundbreaking on that new events, convention type center, as in the spring of 2026. So all big things taking place back here. And then it's great for our community, but we're also looking at building a new fire station in the same period of time where we desperately need a new facility to house our firefighters and paramedics. And so along those same timelines, you'll see that the proposed site for that, which we're working with an architect currently, is right next door to this building to the south on that piece of property, which directly and indirectly ties into the land that we've been discussing. So we're in that planning phase, but we expect to start seeing some things happen with that property as soon as the spring and summer. So that's really all I have. Yes, sir.
How soon, with regard to that tent, how soon would you anticipate being able to take bookings?
So, we'll be putting that all together over the winter, but we really wanna come out strong in the spring, and we figure it's a 30-day project, if planned correctly. Again, it's mainly, for like some sod, some trees, landscaping, and then the tent. And so we'd like to have that opportunity, but we'll be able to provide more information, later this week.
And the infrastructure already there.
There is infrastructure there, so we'll be looking to, share that progress with the public and,
So the public will be able to book it?
well, it'll be more for, yes, for like the community center. We wanna see it active. We will have a schedule of events that the village will be putting on, but we would gladly look at anything, outside of those timeframes to keep things, active, for lack of a better term.
Seems like a really great asset for putting heads in beds.
Exactly, well, I mean, that's the ultimate goal with the lodgers tax funds. Right now, as you may know, there's larger, music, acts, which will struggle, there's not a good venue currently. Again, we've outgrown Frontier, the ones that we have had are great, but we've really outgrown that. We need to have something that protects equipment and the performers, again, that we can open up, seat people, and then in the wintertime, have a nice sized facility where you could have any kind of again, we'd love to book it to outside conferences, anything to just bring people to town.
So the road, the road that's gonna go to that, is that gonna be a paved road, or is that just a gravel road for now, or?
So again, planning and budgeting, but I would like to continue to focus, one of my personal focuses is on pavement in the core, so I'd like to continue to see that. Back to the streets committee, again, they're working on this stuff, and we were delayed on some projects, for instance, South Angel Fire Road, and a couple of other, areas in the core were budgeted and scheduled to be paved this year. We were not able to get asphalt. Between the construction, getting it over here, and with the big projects going on in Taos and Espanola, they've consumed the asphalt, and if you've been to Taos lately, you know, I'm hoping that they are able to complete their project this season in the town of Taos, much less this project here. So we're gonna be patient, and we have no choice, but those projects will continue, and then we're looking at other options, adopting Crestview, possibly looking at pavement on Sage Lane. The pavement, we'll look at the core, make sure that we can maintain what we're paving. That's a big issue with the paving. It still requires maintenance. And so as that, and we get more comfortable with it, then we can start expanding from there. Obviously been very pleased with the amount of roads that have been rebuilt just in the last really 45 days. And they continue to make great progress. I believe we're gonna hit 20 miles, pushing 20 miles.
This fiscal year, but come winter, will be 14 for sure, and maybe 15 miles. And then, so then we'll probably have to wait till May, and the fiscal year ends June 30th, so we're thinking May and June, another 5 miles.
And then a new start there. So, one of the goals that I had was by the end of my first term, rebuilding 10 miles of road a year. So I have to thank everybody involved for allowing it to get 15 and possibly 15 miles in the first calendar year and 20 miles in our first full fiscal year. So that's all positive stuff. So again, that's what I have for the streets, roads, infrastructure. You actually touched on our SCADA systems, our water meters. That's huge to be able to track that information accurately. So that was a big undertaking as well, and the airport. So if you don't have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to turn it over to these gentlemen and their committees.
Fortunately, he already addressed, Attila addressed Trails and Rec, and BJ did most of the Lodgers Tax Committee. Tourism, Greg's put out a new calendar, you know, of events, which you can easily go online and look at what, you know, the village events are gonna be held, so you'll know kind of when Liberty Square might be available for other options, but that's definitely the plan. And that parking area too, I think where Liberty Square will be perfect for people to park, more parking access to get on the hiking trails.
Well, and not only the hiking trails, but we're trying to look for places too to alleviate people that have difficult driveways, guests, Airbnbs, or I'm sorry, STRs, not to give a trademark, but the short-term rentals. Anybody that needs parking, have a place in the core where they can leave a vehicle if necessary, two-wheel drives that come to visit, that sort of thing. So yeah, the parking area down there is huge for a lot of reasons.
And forgive me if I'm maybe getting ahead with rumor, but I've heard talk that maybe the food trucks will move up that direction as well.
I've heard rumor of that too.
So I would just say there hasn't been any formal discussion about that, nor planning for that.
Okay.
I think the food trucks in that venue where they're currently at is wonderful, and I still feel like the town can support more and more variety. I mean, currently I love what that park has to offer, just in terms of variety, if nothing else. And then, of course, you know, we have a couple others in town, but yeah, we want to, back to just long-term planning, we hope to see not only what we're doing, but help spur maybe some growth in and around some of the resort property on the south side that Allison alluded to, where they have private property with the green belt space where the creek runs in between. Hoping that this will help spur private development as well, in any number of ways, so,
So people will know where our town center is.
yeah.
If I can add, the visitor center is looking really good, and I appreciate the fact that we prioritize Christmas lights, so good job, Mayor Lindsay.
Well, and then I don't wanna get ahead of Greg, but since you brought it up, in the Village Voice, we're having a big Christmas tree lighting, which we've done annually, but it'll be held at the visitor center in that parking area over there. And then, the village has also been able to secure, I believe, $250 gift certificate from Alpine, which we're offering up as a prize for the best decorated, home business in town. So we encourage people to send in their pictures, and, we're encouraging people to get festive.
Good.
And so we feel like we had to lead by example. We wanted to do more, by the way. We actually wanted to put Christmas lights on all our light poles, but unfortunately the voltage situation didn't work out, but Jake's Dark Sky Committee is gonna have us replace those before we anyway, so
You gotta check your lumens,
we'll
Mayor.
make sure we can plug them into those.
And then the scavenger hunt.
Oh, yeah, Greg's doing a scavenger hunt on Black Friday, offering a scavenger hunt for any local business that wants to participate. So we're trying to encourage people that, you know, especially in our shoulder seasons, to visit, our village businesses and have some fun along the way.
There's some big prizes, I think, coming with the scavenger hunt.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for all that good stuff.
So Mayor, two thoughts on the streets committee. One is, defensible idea. So I think when Public Works and the committee is deciding on what streets get service, treated, improved over the others, how those decisions got made, so you can defend it and no one's gonna scream that, how come you didn't fix my street? And
Well, of course, that's what we get, and of course, most of the people,
yeah,
are most concerned about their street, or the
Right.
way they get to theirs. So the way we looked at it initially is, number one, volume of traffic and, the condition of the current road. So there's a lot of roads that were going primitive. In other words, all the base course was all gone. There's actually boulders, subgrade, that have exposed themselves. So there's still plenty of that. There's still high traffic areas that need attention. There's still, roads going primitive. But basically the combination of the two, major arteries, the condition of the road, and the cost also to rebuild said road. So with that, that was the general criteria given. And again, we identified some of the more known ones and addressed them this year. And that's currently what the committee's working on now is.
I think it'd be good to have that information in the comp plan on here's how the committee makes, where the Public Works Department is making decisions on road improvements.
Yeah.
So those are great criteria, but just to have those,
Yeah.
then it's gonna save
Exactly.
people come screaming at council or you or the manager about, you didn't fix my road. Well, here's the process we're going through. You're down here in year 30, 35.
The timeline.
Yeah.
Timeline.
So, so I would just add
They
that
will, but-
public safety was another criteria that was considered.
Access.
Which is highly related to volume, but not always, some places are lower volume roads, but maybe it's the only, ingress to a neighborhood or something.
Sure.
So those things are considered as well. And, so this year, because of timing and we wanted to get things done, we made those decisions. We're hoping that the roads and infrastructure, will be able to, this over the winter, help us prioritize the roads that we're gonna attack next year. We just didn't have the time to wait for them to do it, this year, so we just had to pull the trigger and make some decisions. But, we will be looking for feedback from roads and infrastructure, moving forward.
The other on that parking lot was, for vehicles, I think it came to my mind when we were in the, ready, set mode a couple years back is, the people who have trailers or other stuff, they needed a place to get it away from the house and put it in a non-flammable area. I think that place could also serve as a staging area for people's RVs or trailers or campers or whatever they might have, they wanna pull out of their house, so.
And along that line, and it's something that definitely relates to tourism and also public safety, is our initiative currently, which, we don't have a committee necessarily for, but Chief Hogrief is working on, is trying to get a zone, is it HOV zone, ROV zone, in other words, where you can take legally licensed, off-road vehicles, not only on our, village roads, which they're currently allowed, but down Highway 434 from the blinking light to Forest Road 76, so beyond the village limits into the county to Forest Road 76. And the goal there is to, a few things. One is the only current place to ride these vehicles in town is in our neighborhoods. So instead of people just driving around in the neighborhoods, for lack of a better place to go, they can actually leave Angel Fire, head to the National Forest. And where there are off-road vehicle trails there. To allow people to take trash to the dumpsters, the transfer station, or even access the car wash, that sort of thing. But at the same time, I think we will attract more of those vehicles. I think they're coming regardless. And so we wanna accommodate it more. I know Red River's, the great thing about having, Chief Hogrief, he's had a lot of experience in Red River as their town marshal and then also as their county sheriff and beyond. And so we have a lot of advantages that they don't have, but, we feel like if we can do this responsibly, back to that, it gives people a place to park them, trailers and so on, and go from there. So, again, the goal is actually to reduce traffic on, our village roads, if at all possible, and accommodate the National Forest. And that's just a trend that is in every mountain community to some degree. And so we don't wanna, we want to be able to have our residents and visitors alike take advantage of that, but also, keep them out of places that they're not supposed to be. So, again, it's gonna affect, some things here in town with that. And we have to address both the positive and negative to come with it.
Thank you.
So I'll kind of go through my committee's liaison. We have Gary, a committee member here for the Dark Sky Committee. The goal of that committee is basically reducing overall light pollution within the village of Angel Fire. To that end, we've met with the state chapter of the International Dark Sky Association. They had been engaged in doing the same municipal code writing in both Albuquerque and Los Alamos. We really used the Los Alamos template. It was a lot more applicable to us than Albuquerque as our first pass. We've had our first presentation at a council work session, and since that time have been going out soliciting feedback from businesses in town. Some of them up and down 434. I've also been going out soliciting feedback from several of the property managers that manage most, if not all, of the condo associations in town, getting feedback on, okay, we've asked for something fairly prescriptively strict, but you have an outdoor lighted, 3-floor staircase that somebody's got to navigate. What legal requirements do they have to provide lighting? So I would say we're in the ironing the details phase there on how to, what we can and really what we would not be appropriate to limit. But essentially we're looking for as little light trespass from property to property. These are gonna be, lumen caps, time cutoffs, those types of things. Gary's had a pretty quick and dirty summary, I think. Did you wanna add anything to that?
Yes, and you mentioned, of course, the Christmas lighting, and we're working working on that too, and also the area lighting per acre, that sort of thing. But, the other thing that I'd like to say is other committees were making reports here and they were talking about, things like Allen Fields that are gonna require lighting. We would like to interface with those committees to make sure we're all on the same page, and I guess that's what this whole meeting's about anyway.
Correct. We obviously want the, tourism dollars that having lights at Allen Fields could bring in the form of hosting softball tournaments for local use, those types of things. The flip side, I think what's driven this, what we've heard from the community, what's driving the dark sky ordinance is we have a tremendous number of unoccupied residences here in town. Some of them have lights left on year-round. Some of them are a very large number of lights, so we're looking at it from that perspective, but also from the tourism perspective. Gary is an amateur astronomer at this point. We think there can be some opportunity for night sky viewing. If you go just north of us, between Alamosa and Great Sand Dunes, there is an area up there that is a dark sky community, and they market that. They bring people into town when there are meteor showers and other events. We think long-term that doing some events for stargazing out at the library or at the airport would be a great use of lodger tax dollars, but it's getting this ordinance written and passed in such a way that's manageable, but gives us something to go out there and sell to tourists and residents alike.
Is a goal of dark sky certification?
So it depends. You can be a dark sky community. Let's look at this a couple of ways. When we look at the Albuquerque, for Albuquerque to be certified dark sky is going to be a much different threshold than Los Alamos and then for us. I think some of the big questions left are path lighting, Christmas lighting, things that we want to have, but actually being certified, I think that depends a lot on, as Mayor Lindsay pointed out, we're gonna have a tremendous number of streetlights that are not gonna be in compliance, and that's gonna be a fairly heavy cost to pay. So I think, could we get there? Yes. At what cost and how long is it gonna take us to do that? That's a bit of an open-ended question right now.
And back to that, so I will say replacing our streetlights currently is not at the top of the priority list.
Right.
But if it's in our plan, which makes it to the comp plan, which we can then seek grants for energy efficiency, dark sky, that sort of thing, anywhere that fits in, we'll have the data to support that, and hopefully be able to do something there.
Also understand that the way that the draft is written now, there is a fairly long time to compliance, particularly for commercial operators. We're not trying to go give a commercial operator, here's a bill that you weren't anticipating that's due next year. Let's give people some time to bring themselves into compliance over several years.
Yeah, I'd like to add that we're talking about a grandfather clause, which is kind of what you alluded to here.
Correct.
But also any new lighting would have to comply.
Yeah, so if it ages out, requirements,
Right.
Exactly, so.
So that's Dark Sky Committee. Gary, unless you've got anything else to add?
No.
I also am liaison to the Fire Adaptive Committee. That committee's been meeting for some time, obviously with the goal of increasing thinning within the village limits. Essentially where we are now is we are stuck still with the old Fire Adaptive Ordinance, which is not being enforced. Years ago, when they were still using that ordinance, we created far too much material. So a lot of what we've been working on, specifically now with Chief Vance, some of you have met, there's a goal this winter to clean out what we call the pit. If you've ever been back to the transfer station, you see a large sunken area that's full of old, dried out wood material. There's a plan in place to get rid of most, if not all, of that material this year, to move all of our burning activities and to use that pit more effectively for burning. We are currently keeping up with the intake of slash that's coming in now, but there is no enforcement in place. So we've developed several plans for, if we start to have more material come in than we can burn on a day-to-day basis, what's plan B, what's plan C? How do we put an ordinance in place and keep it active over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years? This is going to be a very long-term process, getting to a defensible space ordinance. We actually have, on council meeting tonight, there's an agenda item to move us to the ISO 2021 standard. We're a couple of years behind what the state is on. And so having Chief Vance engaged in that and really has been a huge help. We've hired a new person based on some grant writings who is going to be our communication specialist. Hi, sorry, we haven't met yet.
No, you're all good.
We also are in process of working on, there's some technical questions on the current draft of the defensible space that myself nor the committee members are really qualified to answer, so we're looking for some help from state forestry. We've identified a contract we think we can help get us past those few technical hurdles. But really, that committee is engaged similar to the dark sky. This is ordinance writing is what they're doing. We have an old broken ordinance, we need to get a new one that works long-term and get it implemented sooner rather than later. So that's Fire Adaptive Committee, again, ordinance writing. Probably my busiest committee right now is the Workforce Housing Committee. We've been meeting since the first of the year. Some of you have probably seen we closed on the 4 1/4 acres behind Zeb's. It's accessed in that gate that is not a road now between Zeb's and the Alpine parking lot. We have ordered the site survey for that property, and here very quickly are going to be working on some preliminary layouts for how many housing units we think we can get in that 4 1/4 acres. That presentation happened at one of the previous council work sessions. We want this to be a neighborhood. We understand that a large number of our village employees are gonna live there. Manager Weir and I have had some initial conversations. We're working on an internal survey to figure out how many of our current 70+ employees would look to slide over into that housing option when it's available. And I believe last time we checked, we have 12 open recs for the Village of Angel Fire. These people we'd like to hire, we have a position for, but without housing, how do you hire that person? So
That's the biggest roadblock currently to hire.
correct.
You have people responding, ready to go. They can't find a place to live.
If we're guessing, we think the village is probably gonna be able to occupy 25+ of the housing stock that goes in there. And we're looking, probably the first 2 layouts we're gonna do are a 30-unit layout and a 40-unit layout. Trying to figure out how much green space we need to leave in there, not just for snow plowing, though that's important, but we may put a playground in there. We may put some picnic tables, again, to have this be more of a neighborhood feel.
It's multi-story?
No, so the current plan, as it's laid out right now, these are single-story modular units essentially. We're primarily looking at 2-bed, 2-bath, and 3-bed, 2-bath. Most of that was driven by the costs. We could not find a single-bedroom tiny home, if you will, that when you penciled it, you're better off with the 2-2 than you are the 1-1. So this is really what we're kind of considering phase 1. Many of you may know we looked at 2 different pieces of dirt that got evaluated by the committee and by council. But if we're looking between 30 and 40 units, ultimately we would love to, I think Mayor Lindsay brought up earlier, we would love to find a private developer to be doing workforce housing. The challenge with the private developers, they've got to gather up the money, all of the tax credits, state and federal, and hope it comes out of the ground. So we've had conversations with some of those guys, but truthfully, we would love to see phase 1 of Village Housing spur 2 or 3 private developers to come in and do exactly the same thing. I don't think any of us believe that phase 1 is going to fully address the housing needs for the Village of Angel Fire or the other businesses in town. So, yes, sir.
May I ask where the other plot of land is?
So the other plot of land we evaluated was a 5-acre plot out on Highway 64, just west of the DOT lot, where the holes are, yes. So that was the other plot of land that we evaluated, and I think there was pretty broad support. It's a nice piece of property. What we liked about the Zeb's one ultimately, and I think why it went out, is it's walkable. You could work for, the resort has employees that walk that far. We have employees that could get that far. You're nestled between the hardware store, Zeb's, and the lumberyard. It's a pretty good area to have employees situated. So in the immediate term, the survey is going to get done. The initial preliminary layouts are gonna get done. We'll end up picking one. The plan is to go through and do all of that engineering work through the winter. So come spring, we're ready for ground site work for roads, underground work for utilities, and the plan is to have housing units start showing up here next summer for occupation.
This time next year, we hope to have people occupying those structures.
Correct. So, workforce housing is really, that committee's been blowing and going because we have governance draft, we had to get MFA ordinances, both here and Manager Weir's helped at the county level. You're required to do that. We've interfaced with Rocky for many hours on grant writing. We're still fingers crossed that MFA is gonna give us some money towards, this project that we hope to have people living in next summer.
Are those rentals or for sale?
So no, the way these will be set up now, we're not subdividing the plots out. These will be rentals owned and operated by the Village of Angel Fire. The governance documents give first choice to village employees. And then after that, it is employees and contractors of any local businesses. I suspect that we're gonna end up with some type of a lottery to fill whatever remaining units are left over, cause you know, if we have 12 units left over, I bet we have far more than 12 applicants for those units. So, you know, based on what that layout looks like and what other private developers, you know, the question will be, how soon do we look at phase 2 dirt? Do we find a developer that wants to do that instead of us? Those are kind of the open questions as far as housing goes.
Does the private developer get assistance from the village to go through the process of getting grants and things like that?
So that was one of the reasons we did the MFA ordinance. We have to have that on the books to qualify for MFA monies, but private developer qualify for MFA monies. I think ICAP is the IRS program that private developers qualify. So any developer that wants to can come work with the Village of Angel Fire. Now, we're somewhat limited on, you know, we can't go build the structures for you, but we can get you infrastructure and things to your site for development. So there are some, you know, financial advantages for a developer working with us, working with the state, and working with the feds. We just haven't had one get all the way to the finish line and break ground. So that's why we're moving forward with doing it ourselves, because, you know, we can't really wait. You know, we need the firefighters, we need the police officers, we need the accountants, we need water and streets guys, and all those folks gotta live somewhere. The other big benefit out of this that Manager Weirs pointed out is a large number of our workforce right now does not live within the village limits, and it hurts us from a median income perspective on all of our grant writing activities, not specific to workforce housing, but any grant you apply for, they're gonna ask you 2 questions. How much cash do you have in the bank, and what's your median income? And our median income right now is not favorable for our grant writing activities. So getting our employees to live here benefits us from grant writing, from, you know, shopping, GRT purposes. So until such time as somebody says stop, we're gonna keep looking at rentals that we can own and occupy with our workforce in.
And as far as the comprehensive plan is concerned, and not to get into too much detail, but again, if we wanna assess the actual need here. We're gonna be on the hook for these units, we have to have them filled. Now, the benefit again to us doing it is we can do it at cost, we can subsidize them. We have a short-term rental ordinance that's gonna be going into effect shortly. We've already increased building permit fees, and we're looking at some other things to generate money that we're specifically gonna spend on short-term housing. So in other words, we're able to keep the rental rates affordable. That's the main reason a private developer hasn't done it. It's hard to make it pencil.
Correct.
We can have rents where people can afford to do this.
I will say one of the things, we haven't published all the data because we're still getting it back, but the employer survey, the one that's been out the longest, it's indicating we're 250 to 300 housing units short. This is not 10
So
short.
those are
This
the
is-
exact kind of issues, we can put in that, you know, the bullet statements for the comp plan, here are the issues on housing, so forth, yeah.
And so back to Scott's point, the rentals, I think phase 1 is definitely rentals, not even subdivided. Phase 2 will probably be more of the same to satisfy an immediate need. Phase 3, because we do have opportunities in other parts of town, that we feel like we might be able to work with people to make it profitable. Again, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but we would like to see properties then for sale in deed restricted neighborhoods, so that there's not the short-term rental side of things. We're able to offer the dirt at a minimal cost to attract builders that can then build for people that work their way up through these other units and ultimately wanna own something, and then just continue to graduate from there. So there's a long-term plan there, but addressing the short-term needs is obviously our first goal.
Well, it's because those dozen employees that we need interface with all of our other projects. So it was where the fire was biggest. I think the analogy was put, that was our biggest need, is we need 12 people as quick as we can find housing for them. So that was the end of the problem we decided to work on.
From my perspective, businesses wanting to move here have that major obstacle as
For sure.
well.
I think it's the biggest, quite frankly.
We're building a house right now, and almost all of our contractors or subcontractors are from out of town, and they're putting up entire teams in Airbnbs,
Mhm.
or excuse me, STRs.
Not discount VRBOs.
So those are the summary of my three committees. I hope that gives
It
you.
does, and I think as Gary mentioned, over here, there is this, connect between recreation trails and your work, cause I can see already visualizing how you could do a half-mile loop pathway within this community, a small dog park and the playground or park area, as it make it a community of itself. So I think we'd be happy to provide some insight on that design idea for that community. That's the kind of stuff we wanna see happening with these different groups. And the lighting, whatever lighting happens in there too, would be in line with what your goals are.
I think part of the Allen Fields discussion would be the timing, like softball tournaments would be over around 9.
Sure.
And lights would go out.
I think right now we have 10 o'clock
Yeah.
is kind of our cutoff, so not something, I think I could see envision a spot too where if somebody did wanna host a tournament later, well, let's give them a exception permit or
Cloudy
something.
day, yeah. Cloudy day.
Exactly.
I just wanna let you know, as of now, I actually play in these tournaments
Yeah.
that we have here now. And they're all day long, but they're from like 7 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, so there's no night games yet. And we can imagine why there's no lighting, but.
Well, and there's a pretty big call for it. I mean, if you're in Albuquerque or somewhere and you wanna have a nice cool weather tournament, we'd love to have you.
Soccer tournaments,
Yeah.
there's traveling youth leagues, there's a lot that we're missing out on there.
Geocaching. Those activities or events, I'm serious.
Yeah, yeah.
They're real events that people love to travel for.
Kite festivals.
Alright,
Any other reports or updates that anyone would provide on?
The other thing I'd like to say is I know that, you used water, wastewater, and solid waste here, and I know y'all are interviewing Director Epler on these topics, but on these examples, and I know there's just examples, we have answers for all these questions.
exactly.
Yeah, Kurt's the guy to get them from.
And Arwen. He's got monthly news reports and all kinds of things. So yes, exactly.
So yeah, so I'm gonna definitely, again, you've emailed this out, we'll just make sure that our committees, I think, have these filled out as best as possible and back to, is it on our timeline?
Yeah, our timeline, so Mariana, we, I think going back, we anticipate providing council a draft. There's a rough draft in September, and then time to edit, modify that in time for a November adoption, I think is what we're going for. So that time period in the summertime is really the start, all these groups gotta be coming together, and we'll be working with them all, trying to figure out how these goals align, where's the most energy, and then you guys can be figuring out how, if we do the 5-year plan or 3-year plan after it's adopted, you guys sit down over the winter and come up with a work plan for the rest of it, so that's all conversations that need to happen among staff and, village leadership.
So I will give you a word of warning that unlike prior administrations, this administration is moving very fast. And so what you might gauge as 10 years out may only be 5. We're gonna end up doing 20 miles of road. There probably hadn't been 20 miles of road reconstructed in the village in the last 20 years.
I think our committee is gonna give you, I think our goal is to provide you with, here's all the key goals and here's the recommended actions. And, through some sort of a process, we should have some, maybe it's next summer, maybe it's, there's a town hall around, same time there's the June, membership thing going on, there's a town hall around all these topics. And we get feedback from the community that people are ranking or voting, and then after that, we sit down, well, here is the top 3 things in this area people wanna work on. And then it's gonna give you guys the direction, okay, we need to come up with our actions or our implementation strategies for these things after that. So I think hopefully we can look at, you know, the summertime as a big opportunity to engage our part-time residents, full-time residents, but at the same time, I think all the communities should be reaching out in different methods. And I think this Village Voice is a really good strategy to use this winter, once we've got some handle on some of the stuff to get some feedback.
What, now that it's really starting to take shape and becoming more of an informative newsletter, almost newspaper as far as the village is concerned, we'll make efforts to make sure that it's getting out in numerous ways besides just the water bill.
Yeah, wonderful.
I think it'd be a great thing to have to come revisit this again in 5 years and not wait 18 years.
But to see all the things, all the goals you've achieved, right?
Exactly, and not to say, again, there was a lot of things on the 2006 plan that have happened, but again, we're way overdue, and so.
And a lot of those goals are still relevant, that could still, carry over, they might be SMART goals a little better than they were, but that stuff is still relevant and should continue to be considered.
Yes, sir.
I was curious on these committees, what is considered realistic timelines? I mean, how far do these go out? I mean, does the comprehensive plan include things that are 30 years from now, or are they mostly just 10-year plans, 15-year plans?
They're mostly 10-year plans, though most communities rarely ever get around to updating them every 10 years, so it's usually 15 years. But it depends on how it plays out, so I think the bigger question to me is, what's the 25-year vision for the community? And if you know what that vision is, then the comp plans can be updated to always move towards that vision.
Yeah, I mean.
If it's an outdoor recreation destination, if that's where we wanna be, and we're thinking about UTV access and all these different things, then we know what that vision is. If it's not, if it's Musing the Angel Fire, then all this UTV stuff isn't exactly the right traction to go on if it's, so, you know, what's the vision?
Yeah, and you can only plan so far ahead when you have demographics that, last time they did the plan, they thought that we were gonna grow by a certain amount. And you can only plan for so much or predict so much, and so you do wanna plan for a long term, but you also have to know that you don't wanna put a bunch of money into something that, you don't necessarily have the need for.
Or you're not gonna necessarily succeed at in a reasonable amount.
Again, we want it to be realistic, but ambitious at the same time.
And the other thing, I think the key to a successful comprehensive plan is that it's gotta be like a living, breathing document, which means you've got to continually, I mean, we can't do it in 2008 and do it again in 2024, which is what we currently have. It's gotta be something that's being updated, statutory, well, like, cause my experience with these is in the school district, when I was on the school board, and the school districts are required to do one every 5 years. It's a statutory requirement. It's not for a village, but it should be. But it also, it hurts us when we try to get grants. A lot of grants will ask, you know, about for your comprehensive plan, and when you have one that's dated 2008, you know, they laugh at you. So, we have motivation to keep it updated, but that's the thing. Even though this committee is going to get us updated, and I know I've heard talk, well, then you're not gonna need us. I'm like, no, you're gonna start on the next one as soon as you're done with this one, and then we're gonna, you know, it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, you know, it never ends. And that's the way it should be for a comprehensive plan, in my opinion.
Can we change the color?
Take 10 years.
Mary Ann?
When we set up our comprehensive plan committee, our mission was to create a report that would look at the next 5-year period and the next 10-year period with a renewal every 5 years. And that was in our mission statement. And I think that's a good guideline.
Well, I just wanna end by saying thank you to everyone involved. The comprehensive plan is where this all comes together, but again, all the committee members, whether they're village committees or otherwise, that are contributing to this. The reason we're able to make such progress in such short periods of time is because of all the volunteers. These are all strictly volunteers. We have such a wealth of knowledge and just a brain trust in our community. And I feel like it hasn't been utilized to this degree in years, but in order to keep that interest up, we've got to continue to act on these things. Nobody likes to spend all this time putting plans together just to shelf it and then revisit it again in 16 years or whatever the case may be. So I can't thank the counselors for spending their time, not just with these council meetings, but liaisons to these. Mark Manley, I think, is on about 15 of the 20 committees. I don't know how he gets anything done for the resort, but that guy's all over the place. So no, but in all seriousness, everybody, and thank everybody for being here today. So with that, I think we'll adjourn. You're all welcome back at 5:30 for our regular council meeting.
Thanks, Mary Ann, thanks, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Recording.
Okay. I understand that.
What up, bro?